y'all. We're the good doctors of Abbey Research. I'm Dr. Kristen.
And I'm Dr. Erin.
You are exceptionally welcome to our little corner of the internet, where today we are talking about a very specific part of Haitian culture as a piece of our month-long focus on Haiti as part of our series where we talk all around the world about the legacy of colonization. And I want you guys to know that today's piece might be one of the most surprisingly connected to colonization that we've ever had. The tentacles of this are utterly fascinating, and we can't wait to get into it. We are talking about Vodou, which is the version of voodoo that exists in Haiti. We'll get into it.
Yeah.
Everything you know about voodoo is a lie. We'll get into it.
We promise. We promise.
We both had just about the same level of knowledge, and I think we were both shown that so much of what we knew was racism and colonization.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did anything you think was anything you thought you knew proven true?
Absolutely none of it.
Yeah, same.
Absolutely none of it.
Well,
yeah.
I knew. Yeah, I'll amend that in a minute. But yeah.
I mean, I had a vague understanding that it was deeply misunderstood. And in my head, I was like, oh, I think we kind of have a lot of negative stereotypes about it. And I had no idea what was true and what wasn't. And this has to be one of the most fascinating deep dives I think you and I have ever done. I know we both loved so much what we learned, and we're so grateful for folks out there who are experts in this and who made really helpful videos and articles about it, because I was worried we weren't going to find a lot out there. We were going to find too much stuff that wasn't helpful, and we found some top choice prime cut resources. Seriously. That were so needed.
Yeah. I'll say that I did know that it was a syncretistic relationship between Catholicism and West African religions. Yeah. So, and then that is true. So that is a thing that I knew that is true.
That is true.
But I definitely, there are elements of blood sacrifice in West African religions. And so I wasn't sure if voodoo included human sacrifice or not at some point in its history. I had a feeling that was a lie. But I didn't have any evidence. Now I do. I have an entire pile of evidence that is a lie. Blood sacrifice can be an important part, but it's never human. And like I said, we're going to get into it. So my job here is going to be background. I'm going to give you a background. I'm going to talk about the theology, because that's my job here on the on the Good Doctor's role. Then Erin's going to talk to you guys a little bit about art, because this is the thing that blew my damn mind. So the relationship between the diaspora, Vodou, and Hollywood is going to blow you away. Erin's going to get into it. And then we'll talk a little bit about generations and faith and Vodou and what that kind of all looks like. And we are going to have to, once again, I know you're shocked, talk about the foundational racism of Haiti. So we're going to bring back our good old friend structural violence from last week and talk again about how that informs especially outsiders' understanding of this very misunderstood religion. So yeah, we're going to crack on.
Let's do it.
So this falls under the umbrella of African traditional religions, also called African indigenous religions, depending on which scholar you are reading. I want you guys just to know that there is an entire Protestant denomination in Africa called the African Independent Church. Various forms of faith and practice. The word we theologians use for how you practice your faith is orthopraxy. What you believe is orthodoxy. So the orthopraxis of faith is as diverse as the continent is. It is wild and beautiful and getting reclaimed from a lot of colonization. So I was actually quite excited to see that there are non-Christian reclamations after spending a lot of time in seminary learning about the Christian reclamations. Mm-hmm. So the word comes from West Africa, and it means sacred dance of the spirit. This is why whenever you see videos of Vodou, you will see people moving. You will hear drums. You will see movement, because it is how they celebrate with or worship or communicate with the spirits. This is where we also need to let you know there is a massive difference between Haitian Voodoo and New Orleans Voodoo. We will not be speaking about New Orleans Voodoo at all, if ever. Although we're going to New Orleans in a couple months, so we may end up learning more about it. Because we have to.
Now we're obsessed.
So some of the visual things of voodoo you have in your head, gentlemen with giant top hats and long stringy hair, is slightly more associated with voodoo than voodoo. So be aware of that. Really, how it was born was the combination of 3 religious elements. By the time that slavers showed up into the Kingdom of the Congo, the Congolese... I think he was a monarch at that point, leader.
Yeah, I think he was. He declared himself king.
King of a lot of tribes. I mean, the history of that part of Africa. But anyway, so the Kingdom of the Congo had converted to Catholicism in the 1600s. And had really begun a lot of especially the mysterious practice. They really took on saints. That was, because that fit in well with some stuff they were already doing. Not big on, paying tithes to outside people or letting missionaries show up. But a lot of the elements of that embrace the mystery that Catholicism brings. Now, what a lot of people don't know is he converted back to his traditional religion and never made Catholicism the legal religion of his kingdom. But that relationship was there. So we already have this kind of West African Catholicism that the enslaved persons brought with them. Then you also have other tribes from Benin and other things that never were exposed to Catholicism, but their traditional African religions shared a lot with this thing that existed in Congo. So they come. And then already on the ground, the Creole people were creating their own thing out of their own ancestral religion worship. We shove all of those things together because the thing that those people had in common at the time was they were all black. They were all black. So this religion is this beautiful blend. Laurent Dubois, whose book I am reading, and we will constantly reference all the time because I love it so much, makes the point that it is an extremely open and fluid religion. And it welcomes new arrivals and new traditions, which means that it also could very easily become the language of revolution. Because there was no strong boundaries on the outside of it that said, this is what we believe and this is what we don't believe. It was a lot more about how you are as a person and the relationship you have with nature and the spirit world, and those boundaries could get blurred. I will say, too, putting a pin for all of you guys who are religion nerds like me, there's some very similar stuff that happened in the relationship of American Protestantism and the American South and the creation of the African Methodist Episcopal Church and all this other stuff. But obviously it looks really different. And I am 100% positive that there are brilliant scholars out there that have talked about it. I didn't have time to find them, but I'm going to. So really excited to be able to explore the difference here and what that can kind of look like.
I'm going to interject really quickly and say I am reading this book here. This is just the cover. But I'm hoping that they talk a little bit about voodoo and but it talks a lot about the relationship of African Americans and their connection to Haiti. So we'll see what comes from that. But I'm already gonna have some key insights. I think even in just to the understanding of the relationship between African Americans and the Haitian Republic as it was born. So we're doing more research. We're learning more as we always do, and I can't wait for what both of us discover about this tiny little place in the Caribbean.
It impacts so much. It impacts so much. So when you talk about, when you ask people about voodoo, what all the experts that we consulted, none of them personally, but hi, we'd love to talk to you. Every video we watched, every article we watched, they talk about it as though the Haitians themselves refer to serving the spirits. One of the incredible professors that I watched, she said, you'll hear, I serve the spirits and I am a good Catholic. These things are not mutually exclusive. So we've got to talk about, so there's a couple key elements. Ancestors are a big deal. I already mentioned that. And then your relationship with the earth. So kind of this understanding, as so many indigenous religions and so many indigenous people have, of the constant cycle of life, birth and death, your relationship with nature, your relationship with others. That's a lot of what voodoo embraces. So now let's get into the religious beliefs really quickly. I've heard some people say that it's monotheistic because there is a head god named Mon Dieu. I've heard other people say it is pantheistic because people don't technically worship Mon Dieu and instead relate with the spirits. I like the idea that it is neither and doesn't need to be one of them. But there is a chief god that they kind of work with, but who very few practitioners, from what we have heard, place any weight on Mon Dieu. They'll sometimes, maybe pray for big things, like that there wouldn't be earthquakes anymore. But like your day-to-day interaction is going to be with the Loa. And the Loa are the spirits, the gods that work under Mon Dieu and with you as people. There are lots of nations or nations of Loa. This blew my mind. Somebody said there's like 21 of them, but nobody can name all of them. There's only like 12 that people can really name. Yeah. But it's kind of like the grouping of where they came from. So you've got ancestor Loa, you've got Congolese Loa, you've got Haitian Loa. Like there's a whole kind of thing. To me, it's almost like the god families in Greek mythology. So like you know that like these people are siblings, and so if you want to talk to them, they kind of can work together. It feels a similar vibe with the Loa. It's an excellent example, truly, of the entire nation of Haiti, because it's people making it work and just creating things out of nothing. One of the quotes that I wrote down was, "This religion is a great example because the new culture was born out of captivity, exile, and resistance, and so was this religion." They serve spirits. There's not a real understanding that gods intervene in human affairs, but it's like a Greek or Hindu understanding that like sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. You don't control them, they don't control you. You're in a relationship together for the ultimate good of the ultimate people. So one of the articles I read said, Haitians have a better understanding of their own suffering as not personal to them on behalf of the gods. The gods have not done this to them, but their suffering is necessary potentially for the greater good of everybody else. I only read that in one source. That could be garbage, but it really did seem to track with a lot of the attitudes I saw in some of the other things versus the hand-wringing in a lot of Western institutional religion, where it's like, why, how could God punish me like this? That's not the, they don't have an individualistic idea of theism, and so they don't need to. And then my final thing that I'd like to do before I turn it over to Erin is to make a really important distinction between voodoo and witchcraft. They are used interchangeably. They are very different elements, but people can practice both. So the clearest way I know how to distinguish this for you guys is that voodoo is about community and worship and working together and asking for power from outside sources. Witchcraft is about manipulating those sources yourself, about finding that power and enacting and using that power yourself. And so it is, you can be a practitioner of voodoo and witchcraft, but they are two separate things. When you watch videos, people say like, "Oh, I'm not a witch. I could never be a witch." All this kind of other stuff. There's a lot though of connections between the two of them and the diaspora. So I'm going to turn it over to Erin now so she can tell you a little bit more about that area of this fascinating puzzle.
Yeah, and I think too for me, just piggybacking off what you said there, my basic understanding of voodoo is that it is so much about that connection with the spirits, and you work with the spirits to help you, whereas witchcraft is more about working with ancestors as well, but like with the elements and with. So, it's the spirits that are the huge part of voodoo. And yeah, I mean, what's so interesting about Haitian voodoo specifically is that it comes from this umbrella of the African traditional religious practices. But it's also kind of under that a subsect of African diaspora religions or African derived religions, which I found was a really important distinction. So it is both diasporic in its origin, but then obviously then Haitian people who have left Haiti have made it diasporic out of Haiti as well. So it's like layers of diaspora, which is so interesting. And one of the great scholars that I watched in one of the videos said, diaspora is very much about memory. And she said Africa serves as a symbol, as a metaphor, as a homeland for the diaspora. And she said not for every African descendant community in the Americas, but for a lot of them, Africa is not just a place, it's an icon.
Yeah.
And
that resonated with me as well.
Yeah, so it's this connection with the idea of the homeland and the symbol and the iconography of the homeland that is spiritual and ancestral and a part of the practice of Haitian Voodoo. But then we have diasporic practitioners who have, left Haiti or their families from Haiti or whatever. And a couple of sources I found said, that the 2010 earthquake, the big natural disaster, kind of created a renaissance of Voodoo within the diasporic community. So you have a good portion of practitioners in the United States who, when I got to hear from them, spoke about the importance of maintaining that connection to their culture. We don't have time to get into it now, but there were several of them who were raised in a Christian church and who talked about various reasons why they left the Christian church or a denomination of the Christian church and returned to Voodoo or found Voodoo again. And what's really interesting on top of this is we've seen a rise in popularity in Voodoo practitioning or practitioners with the rise of social media and kind of the accessibility of various platforms and ways for people to communicate about Voodoo and their practices. And I've seen some people arguing that it's specifically, especially among young Black people, who are reaching back to make that ancestral connection. And I want to, before I jump into Voodoo and art, I want to briefly touch on this idea of generations. Because I got a strong sense that there's a resurgence in kind of embracing this identity and heritage and making connections with ancestral practices. I saw some people that said, like, COVID really shifted the way that Black and brown folks engaged with these ancestral practices.
Ooh.
I know. So, like, you bring in COVID, you bring in generations. I think there's something that particular about this resurgence happening with a lot of millennials and Gen Z, and this, like, pushback against more traditional systems and structures of power. And this rise in kind of this cultural spiritualism that's, like, embedded in your understanding of yourself and your ancestry. So that, like, it plays generations, COVID, all of that plays in with the diasporic experience of Voodoo, which I just could spend another, like, 85 days talking about. But I'm not going to, because I want to get into kind of our cultural perceptions of Voodoo in art. And this was one of the most fascinating things that I did not know we were going to come up against in this exploration. But basically, our understandings of Voodoo, especially in the United States, go back to racism, which, I think Kristen will close out this little discussion talking about our favorite friend, structural violence, and the origins of racism against Voodoo in colonialism, because it's, like, inextricable. Can't separate them. So it goes back to that period. We start to see this racism emerging after the Haitian Revolution and reports from Haiti. Remember, Haiti is very, very close to Florida. So it's easier to get information about these places. You're moving back and forth. There's a lot of transfer of goods, all that. It comes with transfer of information. So we start to see understandings of that in the United States right after the Haitian Revolution, leading up into the Civil War and Reconstruction. But really, our understanding in art doesn't happen until we start to develop different mediums of art. And it also coincides with the United States' occupation of Haiti from 1915 to 1934. And this dude went over there, this Seabrook dude, and he was like...
Not a fan. Spoiler alert, not a fan.
Not a fan. And he starts talking to U.S. naval officers about their experiences. Not talking to any indigenous folks or any Haitians. Why would you? And they start telling him all these crazy stories about zombies and animal sacrifices and human sacrifices and all these crazy things that they quote-unquote witnessed. And he writes it all down, and the book becomes very popular, and everyone's like, this is what Haiti is, because this white dude wrote it all down. The story of history. And it is where we get this idea of a zombie, which I did not know, like, came from Haitian Voodoo and, like, our bastardization of it. And it literally, all the stories about zombies lifted straight out of Seabrook's book and put into the first zombie film ever and one of the earliest horror films ever called White Zombie, which came out in 1932, starring Bela Lugosi, obviously, because the guy who plays Who else was starring in movies, in horror movies in 1932? No because one. The guy who played Dracula has to play the voodoo priest, obviously, or whatever. And thus becomes our horrific trail of bastardizing practices. Zombie, it does derive from Haitian Voodoo. The idea of it, it's very specific and not at all what we've done to it, so I won't get into it. But I found this great quote from a Vox article about the history of zombies kind of in art. And it says, they said, White Zombie explicitly stoked America's worst fears of voodooism and turned the spiritual belief system into a horror motif. Haiti is presented as a primitive, orderless place where witchcraft and zombies run rampant. The ultimate tradition of Western religion, marriage, is savaged by the dark magic of the uncivilized world. So again, racism. And the film kind of opened the proverbial floodgates of films featuring zombies and voodoo. A lot of the early ones were set in Haiti or involved Haiti explicitly. And what they all have in common is evil rituals, usually with large groups of individuals dancing around outside a fire. There's snakes. And then some kind of element of lust or sexuality or something along those lines. This is one of my favorite parts of the analysis, and I'm both cue our rage at the patriarchy here. Typically, the stories are white men who are using black people and black voodoo to get to a white woman that they want.
I had to stomp around my office when I read that. Like, of course they are. Of course they are. Because, this connects to a thing I just saw on Facebook, which is that heterosexual men are having a harder time dating now that all the rest of our standards have risen. And, like, that's what this feels like.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to see them start talking about using voodoo again to get girlfriends.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. I mean, it is the most white dude TM thing I've heard in a while. Yeah, great. So this is where we start to see the transition from any understanding of voodoo to voodoo, in the sense that it is always this evil presence that was, again, quoting the Vox article, beyond the control of good people, good Americans, good middle-class citizens. Sorry, that's not the Vox article. That's from, I think, the Guardian video.
It is. The Guardian video, yeah.
Which is like the best 7 minutes of my life currently, that Guardian video. And what's fascinating about zombies, and there's a whole bunch of links in the downstairs in our Google Doc, if you want to read more about this, but the zombies kind of get plucked out of any reference to Haiti in the intervening decades, and like used to showcase the shifting politics of America. So first it was the fear of black folks and this evil. And then once we associate zombies with evil, we start shifting it to talk about the Nazis and then
Sure.
the fear of communism, and then the fear of losing the space race, and then
Good Lord.
they get morphed into countercultural things to highlight
Oh, good gosh.
racism. So like George Romero's Dawn of the Dead, whatever his first
Yes.
one was. Whatever.
Dawn of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead is the parody, but Dawn of the Dead is the first one.
The first one in 1968 is all about like racism and like white cops killing black folks and like zombies. And
Okay.
so it's evolved away from the specific referencing of Haiti and Haitian traditions, but that all still kind of exists in, as we say, the soup we swim in. So
Yep.
like when we started this video, Dr. Kristen and I both told you like we knew there were a lot of negative stereotypes about voodoo, but we didn't know why. But it all happens in these cultural representations and these representations in art. And like I read articles that talk about like we obviously spend a lot more time talking about voodoo in New Orleans, and so that shows up a lot in art. And one of the examples they talked about was the way that a particular voodoo priestess, practitioner, a famous one is represented in the American Horror Story that took place in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And anytime there's a black witch that shows up in shows, even like the Vampire Diaries and like all of this, it kind of reinforces these connections, even though, as we said, there is a distinct difference between voodoo, and witchcraft, but it all gets like melded into the same misunderstanding of the spiritualism of those practices. So absolutely flipping fascinating, y'all. And it all goes back to colonization and racism. So I think since that's where we started, I think that's where we should end this conversation.
So we should say that voodoo is not manipulated just by white people.
Just true.
Papa Doc, for instance, who we will talk about later, used the fact that he was a voodoo priest to manipulate and manipulate the people. Most people that talk about him find no evidence that he was actually a practitioner of voodoo. And he just kind of did all of the bad stuff that comes with it. For instance, he claims, and I'll say this again because it's my favorite Papa Doc fact, he claims that voodoo is responsible for the assassination of John F. Kennedy.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that one.
He did a voodoo ritual that then allowed Kennedy to get assassinated. So
sure, buddy.
So I want to set that not as an excuse for any white people, but I want to show that it is one of the problems with it not being institutional is that anyone can use it however they want.
Yeah.
So there's a double-edged sword here for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the foundational racism, we used our complete misunderstanding of any religion that didn't take place in a hierarchy
mm-hmm.
to fuel why we needed to be afraid of black people having power.
Yep.
And it was kind of like the perfect storm. The Haitian Revolution happened just as Reconstruction was kind of failing. And it was, in a certain way, the Haitian Revolution was like almost the death knell into Reconstruction in the United States. And it really helped bring in Jim Crow. And everyone always talks about Birth of a Nation as like the pinnacle of Jim Crow. And I don't think that's wrong, but I think a lot of it was the rumors coming up from Florida about what voodoo could look like. Also, there's an element of the Haitian Revolution that very few folks talk about, which is that most of the slaves who were captured were already trained soldiers because their tribes had been at war with each other for years.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a real fear of militarily trained black people.
Yeah.
Like, the Haitian slaves showed you that slaves were not uneducated.
Right.
There's also the fact that the language that these people created felt impenetrable to most white folks. I know folks who speak Haitian Creole, and they say it is a mess, which is fair. I know people that speak Gaelic who say it's a mess. So it's not like unlearnable, but it felt impenetrable, especially before anyone could download Rosetta Stone or Duolingo. And so it just kind of kept getting the thing. Also, brief reminder that humans, if they're already slightly wary of something, are only happy to believe the worst things about it. And that's part of our biological determinism, biological makeup to keep us safe.
Yeah.
And again, a reminder as to why we have to always rewrite our brains. Because our brain's job is to keep us safe, and sometimes that makes us assholes. And so that's kind of what the history of this is. So in terms of the structural racism and the structural violence of Haiti and the way it kind of all came together, Vodou provided the accidentally perfect thing that allowed everyone else to think of Haiti, as I've heard lots of practitioners pronounce it, Haiti as a place that needed to be rescued from savagery.
Yeah.
It's almost all the same. We see some of the same narratives that we saw around indigenous religions in North America. We see it again with Haiti, and they used it to justify a huge part of how they justified the invasion in 1915 to 1934, right?
Yeah.
The occupation.
Yeah.
So we could keep going on and on. Obviously, like the craziest stories, like if you were a newspaper editor, especially in the ages of yellow journalism and before journalistic ethics, wouldn't you want to print a story about a virgin sacrifice? It'll sell you papers.
Yeah, and I think
And so it just kind of kept going. The other thing I don't want to forget to say is that we took Sherbrooke's book and quoted it in academic journals.
Yeah. Yeah.
It became the scholarly definition of Haiti, not just the public culture one.
Yeah, and
so it was just screwed always.
Yeah, and it was published in 1929. So like the fact that then White Zombie came out and film became so big in the 1930s. Yep. And this story became so big and so important, and White Zombie did so well that then they wanted to keep making zombie movies, and so they kept regurgitating Seabrook's total bastardization of voodoo. All happened at the same time, and it was like this perfect storm of misinformation. And I read an article that's linked in the downstairs, I don't remember which one, that referenced like Black writer and anthropologist Zora Neale Hurston went to Haiti in the 1930s and wrote about Vodou, and like nobody wanted to read what she had to say about it because it was actually like ethnographic. She actually like went to ceremonies and rituals and talked to people, and they were like, no, but Seabrook said they were all like killing chickens and sacrificing virgins, so that's what happened. And the one thing that I just wanted to say finally about this idea of the fear that it instilled is that, you know, we have to take ourselves back to that time, the 1700s, the 1800s, when the white people in power in the United States believed that black people were evil.
Connected to the devil.
Incapable of thought and education and contributing to society, and only useful for their bodies. They believed that. It was wrong. We know it was wrong, but that's what they believed. And when you see the world through that lens, you will find any justification for your belief. And then Haiti went and declared itself a republic in 1804. And
folks were like, excuse me?
Before the abolition of slavery, even in the United Kingdom, well before the abolition of slavery here, we were just a baby nation in 1804, and we were all about the slave economy. So we were like, what? We can't have them revolting. So we did everything we could to undermine that, which included, once we got these stories of voodoo. And
one of my favorite points about that, though, is that like no one connected the fact that they didn't get rid of slavery or the plantation system.
Right. Like, it's like black people in power. There were still lots of slaves.
They still wanted the plantation system. It was
okay, guys.
Okay.
Do a little bit of research. But what the best explanation that I found for this, the most succinct, was that it has voodoo and misunderstanding of voodoo has been used for centuries as a manifestation of white racial anxieties.
Oh, for sure. Yep.
It is just that so helpful symbol to just be like, oh, but look, every time there's like white anxiety over something. So y'all, we did not expect this deep of a deep dive.
Did you ever find where voodoo dolls originated? Because I couldn't.
No, because it's not voodoo. Like, they don't do that in voodoo.
No, and I don't even know if they do it in voodoo. Like, I don't know. But like this idea of the doll and the pins and the like, where did that come from?
Yeah,
and
I don't know, because that was a huge part of like Lafayette in True Blood voodoo dolls. So no, I haven't found that. I'm sure it's in one of the articles or one of the things we researched. If anybody knows, feel free to please comment under this.
Let us know.
I wonder what kind of interaction we're going to get.
Oh my God.
So nerves and excitement.
Can't wait.
We just scratched the surface, y'all, and we know it. Whoa, boy. Yeah, so as we round out this discussion, my dear Dr. Kristen, what was your Jeopardy fact about voodoo? Pick a feature.
They're separate religions.
No idea.
Like, mind blown.
I just thought it was just spelled differently because, like, one was in French,
Creole, and one was English.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So when they finally do African diasporic religions on Final Jeopardy, I'll nail this one.
Nail it.
What about you?
For me, that it was the origins of the zombie. Like, I've always found zombies kind of interesting. Not, like, to the level, I've not watched The Walking Dead, but, like, I've enjoyed some stories, and I find our cultural fascination with them interesting. But I had no idea that it came from this place. And that it had all of this, like, horrible structural racism wrapped around it. I had no idea. Because I knew it as kind of a countercultural thing. I knew it more in its more recent incarnation, where we use zombies to talk about, like, humanity and all this, like, I've seen, actually, Pride and Prejudice and zombies is one of my favorite interpretations and adaptations of Pride and Prejudice.
Love it. I stopped at Hot Fuzz. I love Hot Fuzz, but, like, it's not my bag. So I didn't know this about you, so this is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I watched iZombie until I got tired of the premise. But I've kind of dipped my toes in every now and again in the zombie waters. So for me to learn that it came from bastardization of Haitian Voodoo, and was all about this structural racism and the reaction to the Haitian Revolution, like, you could bowl me over with that. I was blown away. And this is why we love learning.
Exactly. And we'll put out our traditional call now, where if you are a practitioner of any of the religions that we mentioned today, witchcraft, voodoo,
and there's so many. I learned about, like, there's Cuban, like, Lakumi is a Cuban, like, diasporic religion. There's, like, loads of them, y'all.
And you would love to teach us about your faith system. My Lord, would we love to learn. So comment below. We'll get in touch. We are simply always seeking to be students of the earth and to understand the world better. And we can't wait to learn from you if you are gracious enough to give us your knowledge and expertise. This is going to hit pause on our voodoo conversation. Normally, when we do these, we're always going to have a piece of art that we review next, and we try to make them tie. And as we said last week, that's incredibly difficult with Haiti because of the lack of art distribution and film distribution coming out of Haiti. And obviously, mired by some of the fact that the earth can't stop shaking. But so we found three Haitian films that we'd like to speak about. Last week we talked about an American documentary that had to do with Haiti. But the next 3 weeks we will be talking about Haitian art. They very rarely have anything to do with the exact topic that we're talking about, but they do talk about Haiti. And so that's what we're going to try to do and embrace and everything else. So either next in the playlist or tomorrow, we'll see you for our discussion of the movie whose name just slipped my mind, Haiti Ayunda?
Haiti Mon Amour.
There you go.
Haiti my love. Haiti my love. Yeah. And we chose this one because it's a neo-realist kind of magical story, which I felt was loosely connected to spiritualism in Haiti.
Sounds great.
That's the loosest tie we could find. There is an excellent film about New Orleans voodoo. That was Eve's Bayou that has been recommended ad nauseum, but we are not talking about New Orleans voodoo. So maybe we'll save Eve's Bayou for when we go to New Orleans later this year, and we'll throw it up on the YouTube to continue this conversation. But yeah, we hope you join us for the discussion of this film. If not, or we'll see you for our next foray into the Haitian journey that we are on.
See you guys then.
Bye.